Before we begin, I want you to ask yourself one question. What would your life look like if doubt no longer had any power over you? Imagine waking up every morning with complete certainty. No fear, no second guessing, no wondering if your dreams are possible. Just a quiet confidence that everything you desire is already making its way to you. Most people spend years fighting doubt. They try to overcome it with more effort, more affirmations, more techniques, and more information. Yet doubt keeps returning because they are treating the symptom instead of the cause. The truth is, doubt only survives when you continue giving your attention to what you don't want. The moment you shift your focus from the problem to the fulfilled desire, everything changes. Today, you are about to discover a game-changing principle that has the power to transform every area of your life. A principle that can help you stop questioning, stop worrying, and stop waiting. Because the reality you desire is not created when you see it. It is created when you assume it. So if you're ready to leave doubt behind and step into certainty, stay with me until the end of this message. What you learn today could completely change the way you think, feel, and create your future. One of the most important truths you can ever understand is that doubt is not who you are. Doubt is not your identity. It is not a permanent part of your mind, and it certainly is not your destiny. Doubt is simply a habit. It is a pattern of thinking that has been repeated so often that it feels natural. But just because something feels natural does not mean it is true. In reality, doubt belongs to the old version of you, the version that learned to trust appearances more than possibilities, circumstances more than imagination, and fear more than faith. Most people believe doubt appears because something is wrong with them. They think they need more confidence, more motivation, or more proof before they can believe in their dreams. But doubt is often nothing more than the mind repeating old assumptions. It is the echo of past disappointments, past failures, and past limitations. It is a mental habit formed through repetition. And like any habit, it can be changed. Think about how many times you have repeated certain thoughts throughout your life. Perhaps you have told yourself that success is difficult, that opportunities are rare, or that things never seem to work out for you. Even if these thoughts were never spoken aloud, they may have become familiar emotional patterns. Over time, those patterns created expectations. Those expectations shaped your perception. And eventually, they became the lens through which you viewed reality. The problem is that most people identify with these thoughts. They assume that because they think something, it must be true. But your thoughts are not always facts. Many of them are simply old mental programs running in the background. When doubt appears, it does not mean your desire is impossible. It simply means an old assumption is trying to maintain its place within your consciousness. The moment you understand this, you stop fighting doubt and start seeing it differently. Instead of viewing it as an enemy, you recognize it as evidence that you are leaving an old state behind. Whenever you decide to adopt a new belief about yourself, the old belief often tries to reappear. Not because it is stronger, but because it is familiar. The mind naturally returns to what it has practiced the most. Imagine a person who has spent years believing they are not worthy of success. The moment they begin assuming a new identity, doubts may arise. Thoughts may appear saying, "What if this doesn't work?" Or, "What if nothing changes?" But these thoughts are not predictions of the future. They are reminders of the past. They are leftovers from an old self-concept that is gradually losing its power. This is why persistence matters. Every time you choose your new assumption instead of your old doubt, you weaken the old habit and strengthen the new one. You are teaching your mind a different way of thinking, feeling, and expecting. Over time, what once felt unnatural begins to feel normal. Confidence replaces hesitation. Certainty replaces confusion. Faith replaces fear. You do not eliminate doubt by arguing with it. You eliminate doubt by refusing to identify with it. The moment a doubtful thought appears, you can acknowledge it without accepting it as truth. You can remind yourself that it belongs to a previous version of you. It is not a reflection of where you are going. It is only a reflection of where you have been. The most powerful transformations happen when you stop defining yourself by your old habits. You are not your past failures. You are not your previous limitations. You are not the fears you once carried. Those experiences may have shaped your thinking for a time, but they do not have to shape your future. Every day presents an opportunity to choose a new identity, an identity that expects success, an identity that assumes abundance, an identity that believes life is working in its favor. The more consistently you occupy that state, the weaker the old habits become. Remember, doubt is not proof that your desire cannot happen. It is merely a habit of the old self. And the moment you stop feeding that habit, it begins to fade. In its place, a new version of you emerges, one that no longer lives by fear, but by certainty. And that is where true transformation begins. One of the most powerful shifts a person can make is to stop treating their desire as something that might happen someday, and start treating it as something that is already true within. Most people spend their lives waiting for evidence before they allow themselves to believe. They look at their circumstances and decide what is possible based on what they can currently see. But true transformation begins when you reverse this process. Instead of allowing the outer world to determine your beliefs, you allow your beliefs to shape your outer world. The secret is simple: assume the desired reality is already true. Not tomorrow, not someday, not after certain conditions are met. Right now. The moment you adopt this attitude, you stop living from a place of lack and begin living from a place of fulfillment. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to achieve a goal. You see yourself as someone who has already accepted the reality of that goal within consciousness. Most people unknowingly reinforce the absence of what they want. They constantly think about how far away their desires seem. They focus on the obstacles, the delays, and the reasons why things have not happened yet. Every day they mentally rehearse the problem rather than the solution. As a result, they remain emotionally connected to the very reality they wish to leave behind. But the moment you assume your desire is already fulfilled, your entire perspective changes. You stop asking, "Will it happen?" and begin asking, "How would I feel if it were already mine?" This question shifts your attention from waiting to experiencing. Instead of hoping for a future reality, you begin living from it mentally and emotionally. Imagine someone who desires financial abundance. If they continue identifying with lack, worrying about money every day, and expecting struggle, they remain connected to that state. But when they begin assuming abundance is already theirs, something changes. Their thoughts become calmer. Their emotions become steadier. Their expectations improve. They start carrying themselves differently because internally they are no longer operating from scarcity. The same principle applies to every area of life. Whether you desire success, love, health, peace, or opportunity, the process remains the same. First, accept the reality internally. Then persist in that acceptance regardless of appearances. The outer world is always catching up to the inner world. What you consistently assume to be true eventually becomes reflected in your experience. One reason people struggle with this principle is because they believe they are being unrealistic. They think they must constantly monitor reality and react to every circumstance. But reacting to circumstances only keeps you tied to them. The purpose of assumption is not to deny current conditions. It is to stop allowing current conditions to dictate your future. Your imagination gives you the ability to experience a desired reality before it becomes visible. This is a gift. It allows you to step beyond temporary limitations and connect with a new possibility. The more often you mentally occupy that new reality, the more natural it begins to feel. And once something feels natural, it starts becoming part of your identity. The key is persistence. You do not assume the desired reality once and then return to doubt the next day. You continue returning to the feeling of fulfillment until it becomes your dominant state. Every time fear appears, you return to your assumption. Every time uncertainty arises, you return to your assumption. Over time, certainty grows stronger than doubt. Life responds to the state you consistently occupy. If you consistently occupy the state of fulfillment, life begins reflecting fulfillment. If you consistently occupy the state of success, life begins reflecting success. This is why assumption is so powerful. It shifts your attention away from what is missing and places it on what is already accepted within. So stop waiting for permission from the outside world. Stop looking for signs before you believe. Decide today that your desired reality is already true within you. Feel it, accept it, live from it. The moment you do, you activate a new direction for your life. And as you remain faithful to that assumption, reality will begin aligning itself with the truth you have chosen to accept. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that their circumstances have more power than their imagination. They look at their current situation and assume it defines what is possible. If the bank account is low, they believe abundance is far away. If a relationship is struggling, they believe love is disappearing. If obstacles appear, they assume success is delayed. In doing so, they unknowingly give their circumstances authority over their future. But the truth is that circumstances are temporary effects. Imagination is the creative cause. Everything that exists in your world today was once an idea, a thought, or an assumption held within someone's mind. Every invention, every achievement, every business, every masterpiece, and every transformation began in imagination long before it became visible reality. The ability to imagine is not merely a tool for entertainment. It is one of the most powerful gifts you possess. It allows you to mentally experience a future before it physically appears. Most people use imagination in the wrong direction. Instead of imagining success, they imagine failure. Instead of imagining opportunities, they imagine problems. Instead of seeing the best possible outcome, they rehearse the worst-case scenario. They spend hours imagining what could go wrong, and then wonder why fear and doubt continue to grow stronger. The imagination is always working. The question is whether it is working for you or against you. The moment you understand the creative power of imagination, you begin using it deliberately. You stop allowing random fears to control your mental pictures. Instead, you consciously create scenes that imply your desire has already been fulfilled. You see yourself living the life you want. You imagine conversations that reflect success. You feel the emotions you would experience if your goals had already become reality. This is powerful because the subconscious mind responds strongly to imagined experiences. It does not always distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. When you repeatedly impress positive images upon your mind, those images begin shaping your beliefs, expectations, and behaviors. Over time, your inner world starts changing. And when your inner world changes, your outer reality follows. Many people become discouraged because they focus too heavily on current conditions. They constantly analyze what is happening around them. If results are not immediate, they begin doubting the process. But circumstances are often reflections of past assumptions. They are not permanent facts. They are snapshots of previous beliefs. If you continue giving your attention to them, you reinforce them. But if you focus on a new vision through imagination, you begin creating something different. Imagine a person standing in a dark room. The darkness may seem overwhelming, but the moment a light is turned on, the darkness disappears. In the same way, imagination acts like a light. It reveals possibilities beyond current appearances. It allows you to see what can be rather than what currently is. The more time you spend occupying the desired reality in your imagination, the less influence temporary circumstances have over your emotions. This does not mean ignoring life or pretending challenges do not exist. It means refusing to let challenges become your identity. You acknowledge them without giving them ultimate authority. You understand that what you imagine consistently has more creative power than what you temporarily observe. The people who create extraordinary lives are often those who can hold a vision despite contradictory appearances. They trust the inner picture more than the outer condition. They understand that reality changes from the inside out. They know that imagination is not escaping from life, it is shaping life. So begin using your imagination with purpose. See yourself as successful. See yourself as abundant. See yourself as loved, confident, and fulfilled. Feel those experiences as though they are happening now. Let your imagination become stronger than your circumstances, because circumstances are temporary and constantly changing. But the images you repeatedly impress upon your mind become the blueprint for your future. When you learn to trust your imagination more than your current conditions, you unlock one of the greatest powers available to you, the ability to create a new reality before the old one has even disappeared. One of the biggest reasons people fail to see results is not because their desire is impossible, but because they abandon their assumption too quickly. They assume something positive for a day or two, perhaps even for a week, but the moment circumstances fail to change immediately, they return to doubt, fear, and frustration. They begin questioning whether the process is working. They look for proof, and when they do not find it right away, they slip back into their old way of thinking. What they fail to realize is that transformation requires persistence. The power is not simply in making an assumption. The power is in remaining faithful to that assumption until it becomes natural. An assumption held for a few moments can inspire hope, but an assumption consistently maintained has the ability to change a life. The key is to continue occupying the desired state until it feels more real than the old one. Think about any habit you have ever developed. At first, it may have felt unfamiliar or uncomfortable, but through repetition, it became automatic. The same principle applies to your assumptions. If you have spent years identifying with limitation, worry, or self-doubt, then abundance, confidence, and certainty may initially feel unnatural. That does not mean they are wrong. It simply means they are new. Most people give too much importance to their current feelings. If confidence does not appear instantly, they assume something is wrong. But new states of consciousness often require time to become familiar. Every time you return to your desired assumption, you strengthen it. Every time you refuse to return to the old story, you weaken it. Gradually, the new state becomes your default way of thinking and feeling. Persistence is not about forcing yourself to believe something every second of the day. It is about gently returning to your chosen assumption whenever your mind begins drifting back toward doubt. When fear appears, you do not panic. When uncertainty arises, you do not surrender. Instead, you remind yourself of the reality you have chosen to accept. You continue thinking from the end rather than from the problem. Imagine planting a seed in fertile soil. Once the seed is planted, you do not dig it up every day to check whether it is growing. You trust the process. You water it, protect it, and allow time to do its work. In the same way, your assumptions require trust and consistency. Constantly questioning whether they are working only disrupts the natural process of growth. The reason persistence is so powerful is because repetition impresses ideas upon the subconscious mind. The subconscious learns through repeated experiences and repeated feelings. When you consistently return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, your subconscious begins accepting it as your new reality. And once something is accepted internally, it begins influencing your external experience. There will be moments when appearances seem unchanged. You may face delays, challenges, or situations that seem to contradict your desire. These moments are often the greatest tests of persistence. Will you allow temporary appearances to control your state, or will you remain faithful to your chosen assumption? The answer determines whether you continue creating your future or return to recreating your past. The goal is to reach a point where your assumption feels natural. When something feels natural, you stop trying to make it happen. You stop wondering if it is possible. You stop searching for confirmation. It becomes part of your identity. You simply know. And that quiet knowing is far more powerful than forced positivity or endless effort. When abundance feels natural, you stop thinking like someone who lacks. When success feels natural, you stop expecting failure. When love feels natural, you stop fearing rejection. The state becomes so familiar that it no longer requires constant effort to maintain. This is why persistence matters. You are not trying to convince reality to change. You are allowing yourself to fully accept a new identity. The longer you remain faithful to your assumption, the more natural it becomes. And when it becomes natural, reality begins reflecting it effortlessly. So do not quit because results are not immediate. Do not abandon your vision because circumstances seem slow to respond. Persist in the assumption. Return to it daily, live from it consistently, and continue until the desired reality feels completely natural to you. Because the moment it feels natural within, it is only a matter of time before it becomes visible without. There is a profound difference between hoping something will happen and knowing that it will. Hope can be inspiring, but certainty is transformative. Hope often looks toward the future and says, maybe one day. Certainty looks within and says, it is already done. This shift may seem small, but it changes everything. The reality you desire responds far more powerfully to certainty than it does to doubt, hesitation, or fear. Most people spend their lives moving back and forth between belief and uncertainty. One day they feel inspired and confident about their future. The next day they become discouraged because circumstances appear unchanged. They allow temporary appearances to determine their state of mind. As a result, they send mixed messages to themselves. They want success, but they expect failure. They desire abundance, but they fear lack. They dream of transformation, but they continue identifying with old limitations. Doubt has a unique way of delaying what you desire because it keeps your attention fixed on the absence of the result. Whenever you constantly question whether something is possible, you remain emotionally connected to not having it. You continue observing the gap between where you are and where you want to be. This creates frustration, impatience, and resistance. Certainty works differently. Certainty shifts your focus away from the absence of your desire and toward the reality of its fulfillment. It changes your relationship with time. Instead of wondering when something will happen, you begin living as though it is already unfolding. You stop chasing and start expecting. You stop worrying and start trusting. This inner shift creates an entirely different experience of life. The power of certainty comes from its stability. Doubt is constantly searching for proof. Certainty does not need constant reassurance. Doubt reacts to every obstacle. Certainty remains calm despite appearances. Doubt asks endless questions. Certainty quietly rests in the assumption that everything is working out exactly as it should. Think about someone who knows they are capable of success. They may encounter setbacks, but those setbacks do not define them. Why? Because their belief in themselves is stronger than the temporary challenge. They do not interpret every obstacle as a sign of failure. Instead, they continue moving forward because certainty gives them emotional resilience. The same principle applies to every desire. Whether you seek abundance, love, health, peace, or opportunity, certainty changes how you think, feel, and act. It creates consistency. It aligns your thoughts with your desired outcome instead of your current circumstances. And consistency is one of the most powerful forces in personal transformation. Many people mistakenly believe certainty comes after results appear. They think they will finally feel secure once their manifestation arrives. But certainty must come first. The outer world is often a reflection of the state you consistently occupy within. If you wait for physical evidence before choosing certainty, you remain dependent on circumstances. But when you cultivate certainty first, you become the source of your own confidence. This does not mean you never experience moments of doubt. Every person encounters uncertainty from time to time. The difference is that you no longer allow doubt to take control. You recognize it as a temporary thought rather than an ultimate truth. Instead of feeding it, you return to your chosen assumption. You return to the feeling that your desire is already becoming reality. Over time, certainty becomes stronger because you practice it repeatedly. You stop measuring progress by appearances alone. You begin trusting the unseen process. You understand that reality is always responding to your dominant state of consciousness, even when visible evidence has not yet appeared. When certainty becomes your foundation, your entire experience changes. You make decisions from confidence rather than fear. You expect positive outcomes rather than preparing for disappointment. You approach life with a sense of trust that was previously missing. And this new state influences every area of your existence. Remember, doubt delays because it divides your attention between what you want and what you fear. Certainty creates because it unifies your attention around a single truth. The more certain you become about your desired reality, the less power doubt has over you. Choose certainty today, not because you can already see the result, but because you understand that the result begins within. Hold firmly to your vision. Trust your assumption. Remain faithful to your desired outcome. And watch how life begins responding to the certainty you have chosen to embrace. Because in the end, certainty creates the reality that doubt keeps postponing. As we come to the end of this message, remember this: doubt was never your enemy. It was simply a sign that you had been placing more faith in appearances than in your own inner knowing. The moment you choose a new assumption, a new reality begins. You do not need to force it. You do not need to chase it. You do not need to convince the world. Your only responsibility is to remain faithful to the vision you have accepted within yourself. When you assume abundance, life begins reflecting abundance. When you assume success, life begins reflecting success. When you assume love, life begins reflecting love. Everything changes when your assumption becomes stronger than your doubt. So from this moment forward, stop asking whether it will happen. Start living from the certainty that it already has. Walk with confidence, think with certainty, feel gratitude now, and trust that every assumption held with conviction is already shaping your future. The life you desire is not far away. It begins the moment you believe it is already yours. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this message inspired you, helped you, or reminded you of your true power, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more transformational content. And before you leave, I want you to do something powerful. Go down to the comments and write, "I choose certainty over doubt." Type it with conviction, read it back to yourself, and let it become your new assumption. Remember, your future is not determined by your circumstances. It is determined by the beliefs you consistently accept as true. Thank you for watching. Stay focused, stay faithful, and remember, everything begins within. I'll see you in the next